crash landing on Velthora, Marcus Reed felt his consciousness return in waves, each one bringing fresh pain to his battered body. The acrid smell of burning circuits and twisted metal filled his nostrils as he struggled to open his eyes. Through the cracked viewport of his transport ship, he could see an alien sky painted in shades of purple and gold, with two suns casting an otherworldly glow across a landscape that defied imagination. The crash had been brutal. One moment, he was navigating through what should have been empty space. The next, his ship was caught in some kind of gravitational anomaly that pulled him toward an unknown planet. His emergency beacon was dead, his communication array destroyed, and his chances of rescue somewhere between slim and non-existent, with considerable effort. Marcus pulled himself from the wreckage and stumbled onto solid ground. The air was breathable, thank God, though it carried a sweet floral scent, unlike anything on Earth. Crystalline structures jutted from the ground like frozen lightning, their surfaces reflecting the dual sunlight in spectacular prisms of color. He had barely taken a dozen steps. When he saw her, the woman emerged from behind one of the crystal formations with the grace of a dancer and the caution of a hunter. She was tall, easily 6 feet, with skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light and hair that cascaded down her back like liquid silver. Her eyes were the color of deep ocean water, and when they met his, Marcus felt something shift in his chest. She spoke in a melodious language he didn't understand, her voice carrying notes of concern and curiosity. When he didn't respond, she approached slowly, her hands raised in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "I don't suppose you speak English," Marcus managed, his voice hoarse from the crash. To his surprise, she paused and tilted her head as if processing his words. Then, in accented but clear English, she replied, "I know some of your tongue from the old records. You are injured." Marcus looked down at himself and realized she was right. Blood seeped through his flight suit from numerous cuts, and his left arm hung at an odd angle. Adrenaline had been masking the worst of it. "My name is Nira," she said. Moving closer, "I am a healer. Will you let me help you?" Something in her tone, a gentleness mixed with professional confidence, made him nod. As she began examining his injuries with practiced hands, Marcus found himself studying her face. There was something ageless about her features, as if she had seen centuries pass, yet retained the vitality of youth. "Where are the men?" Marcus asked as she worked, the question that had been nagging at him since he first saw her. In his brief observation of this place, he had seen only women. Nira's hand stilled for a moment. When she looked up, her eyes held depths of sadness that made his heart ache. "There are no men," she said quietly. "Not anymore." Before he could ask what she meant, other women began appearing from the crystal forest. They moved with purpose and carried themselves like warriors, scientists, and leaders. All were stunningly beautiful in their alien way, but all shared the same underlying sadness he had glimpsed in Nira's eyes. "You are the first male to set foot on Velthara in 103 years, Nira explained, as she continued treating his wounds. Her touch was gentle but confident, and Marcus found himself acutely aware of every point of contact between them. The implications of her words hit him like a physical blow. An entire civilization without men for over a century. The loneliness, the desperation, the impossible hope that must have sustained them through decades of slow extinction. "What happened to them?" he asked. "A plague," Nira said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It struck swift and merciless, affecting only the males of our species. Within 5 years, they were all gone. We have survived, adapted, even thrived. In some ways, but we have been slowly dying as a people." As she spoke, more women gathered around them. Marcus could feel their eyes on him, sense the mixture of wonder, hope, and something else he couldn't quite identify. The weight of their attention was almost overwhelming. "And now you fall from the sky," Nira continued, applying a healing salve to his cuts that immediately began to numb the pain, like a gift from the ancient spirits. The warmth in her voice when she said those words sent an unexpected thrill through him. There was something building between them already, some connection that transcended species and circumstance. Their eyes met again, Marcus saw not just the healer tending to his wounds, but a woman who had been waiting her entire life for someone like him to arrive. The other women began speaking among themselves in their musical language, their voices rising in what sounded like heated debate. Nira replied to them firmly, never breaking eye contact with Marcus. "They want to take you to the capital," she explained, "to present you to Queen Zephora and the council. But I have told them you need time to heal first." "And what do you want?" Marcus asked, surprised by his own boldness. The question seemed to catch her off guard. She studied his face for a long moment, and he could see the conflict in her expression. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a vulnerability that made his breath catch. "I want to know who you are," she said, "not just what you represent to my people, but who you truly are. The man behind the miracle." As the alien suns began to set, painting the crystal landscape in shades of fire and shadow, Marcus realized that his life had just taken a turn he never could have imagined. The weight of hope, the healing chamber where Nira brought Marcus, defied his understanding of architecture. Walls of living crystals seemed to breathe with soft pulsing light, and the air itself carried therapeutic properties that accelerated his body's natural healing processes. As she worked, applying various treatments that felt like cool water and warm sunlight simultaneously, Marcus found himself studying the intricate patterns that decorated the walls. "These symbols," he said, pointing to flowing script that seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at it. "What do they mean?" "Stories of love," Nira replied, her hands pausing in their work on his shoulder. "From the time before, when our people knew the joy of choosing partners, of creating families born from affection rather than necessity." There was a wistfulness in her voice that made Marcus's chest tighten. He reached out without thinking, his fingers brushing against hers. The contact sent a jolt through both of them, and Nira's breath caught audibly. "Tell me about Queen Zephora," Marcus said, trying to distract himself from the way her touch affected him. "What should I expect?" Nira resumed her treatment. Though her movements had become more deliberate, almost caressing, "She is wise, but desperate. Our population continues to decline despite our best efforts. The birth rate drops each generation, and we estimate that within 50 years, our civilization will cease to exist. The weight of an entire species' survival settling on his shoulders was almost crushing. Marcus had spent his adult life as a simple transport pilot, ferrying cargo between star systems. He wasn't prepared to be anyone's savior. "I can see the burden in your eyes," Nira said softly. "You did not ask for this responsibility." "Neither did you," he replied. "None of you asked to lose your men to face extinction." She smiled at that, the expression transforming her already beautiful features into something radiant. "You have a kind heart." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of several women in elaborate robes that marked them as members of the royal court. The leader, a regal woman with skin like burnished bronze and eyes that held the sharp intelligence of a born politician, stepped forward. "I am Vera, first advisor to Queen Zephora," she announced. "Majesty requests your immediate presence." Marcus looked to Nira, who gave him an encouraging nod. "Your strength has returned sufficiently for the journey," she said, though something in her tone suggested reluctance to let him go. The capital city was a marvel that took Marcus's breath away. Spires of living crystal reached toward the stars, their surfaces alive with patterns of light that served as both decoration and communication. Gardens of impossible beauty filled every available space, tended by women whose reverent care suggested. These plants were precious beyond measure. The throne room was a cathedral of crystal and light, its vaulted ceiling open to the alien sky. Queen Zephora sat upon a throne that seemed grown rather than built, her presence commanding despite her obvious exhaustion. She was older than the other women Marcus had met, her silver hair marking decades of leadership through impossible circumstances. "Marcus Reed of Earth," she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority earned through suffering. "You arrive at the darkest hour of our people's history." "Your Majesty," Marcus replied, inclining his head respectfully. "I'm sorry for the circumstances that brought me here." "Do not apologize for hope," the Queen said, "for that is what you represent." Our scientists have confirmed that your genetic material is compatible with ours. We could father children, restore our dying bloodlines. The clinical way she spoke of it made Marcus uncomfortable, but he could see the desperation behind her royal composure. This woman had watched her people slowly fade for over a century. She would consider any option, make any sacrifice. I understand the situation, Marcus said carefully, but I need time to process all of this. Murmurs rippled through the assembled court. Clearly, immediate agreement had been expected. Queen Zephora raised her hand for silence. Time we have precious little of, she said, but wisdom demands we proceed thoughtfully. We will be given quarters in the palace. Advisor Vera will attend to your needs. As the formal audience concluded, Marcus caught sight of Nira standing among the court observers. Their eyes met across the vast chamber, and he saw something in her expression that made his heart race. Not just attraction, though that was certainly present, but a deeper connection that transcended their impossible circumstances. Later that evening, as Marcus explored the luxurious quarters he had been given, Nira appeared at his door. She had changed from her healer's robes into a flowing gown that accentuated every curve of her statuesque form. I wanted to ensure you were comfortable, she said, though her nervousness suggested other motives. Stay, Marcus said impulsively. I mean, if you'd like to talk more. She entered his chambers, moving to the balcony that overlooked the city. The night air carried the sound of fountains and distant music, creating an atmosphere of intimate romance. What was your world like? She asked. Before you came here? Marcus joined her at the balcony rail, close enough to catch her intoxicating scent of flowers and starlight. Busy, crowded, sometimes lonely, even surrounded by billions of people. Lonely. She repeated the word as if tasting it. We have a different kind of loneliness here. The ache of missing something we never truly had? You had love stories, Marcus reminded her. Symbols in the healing chamber. Stories passed down from mothers to daughters, Nira said. But stories are not experience. They are not the touch of someone who chooses to be with you, not from duty or necessity, but from desire. The way she spoke the word desire sent heat coursing through Marcus's veins. He turned to face her fully, seeing his own growing attraction reflected. In her ocean-deep eyes, Nira, he began, not sure what he intended to say. She stepped closer. Close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. In our stories, she whispered, this is the moment when two people discover if the spark between them might grow into something beautiful. When she reached up to touch his face, Marcus felt the last of his reservations crumble. He leaned into her touch, marveling at how perfectly her hand fit against his cheek. Is that what you want? He asked. Something beautiful? Her answer was to rise on her toes and press her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, exploratory, then deepened as centuries of longing seemed to pour out of her.
Marcus wrapped
his arms around her, pulling her close as the alien stars witnessed the beginning of something neither of them could have imagined. Dangerous choices, the dawn light filtering through Marcus's chambers carried the warmth of both suns. But it was nothing compared to the heat he felt waking with Nira in his arms. She had stayed the night, their connection deepening through whispered conversations and tender touches that spoke of growing love rather than mere physical attraction. The council will not approve, she murmured against his chest, her fingers tracing patterns on his skin. They will say I am being selfish, thinking of my own desires instead of our people's needs. Marcus tightened his arms around her. Do you think? I think, she said, lifting her head to meet his eyes, that love cannot be commanded or scheduled. It grows where it chooses, and trying to force it kills whatever beauty might have bloomed naturally. Their intimate moment was shattered by urgent knocking at the door. Nira quickly wrapped herself in a robe as Marcus pulled on his clothes. When he opened the door, Advisor Vera stood there with a contingent of palace guards, her expression grim. Forgive the intrusion, Vera said, though her eyes noted Nira's presence with obvious disapproval. But we have a situation that requires immediate attention. They were escorted to the throne room, where Queen Zephora waited with a holographic display showing the planet's surface. Red markers indicated multiple locations around the globe. The Sisterhood of Purity, the Queen explained, her voice tight. with anger, a radical faction that believes our bloodline should remain untainted by alien influence. They have launched coordinated attacks on our research facilities. The implications hit Marcus immediately. They're trying to prevent any genetic research involving me. More than that, Vera added. They've declared you an abomination and sworn to eliminate you before you can corrupt our species. Nira moved closer to Marcus, her protective instincts. Clearly triggered? How many followers do they have? Unknown, Queen Zephora admitted. They have been growing in secret for decades, fed by fear and desperation. Some believe it is better to die pure than live changed. A new voice cut through the discussion. Perhaps they have a point. Everyone turned as a woman entered the throne room without invitation. She was tall and severe, with the bearing of a military commander and scars that spoke of countless battles. Her skin held the deep blue tint that Marcus had learned and dated the warrior caste of their society. General Kasara, the queen said coldly, you were not summoned. No, Kasara replied, her hostile gaze fixed on Marcus. But I felt compelled to speak when I learned of the healer's unseemly attachment to our ... guest. The insult in her tone made Marcus's hands clench into fists, but Nira placed a calming touch on his arm. Explain yourself, Queen Zephora commanded. This alien has been here mere days, and already he shows favoritism, Kasara said. He chooses one woman over the needs of all. How can we trust him to father a generation when he cannot see beyond his own desires? Love is not favoritism, Nira said firmly. It is the foundation upon which strong families are built. Kasara laughed harshly. Love is a luxury we cannot afford. Our people need genetic diversity, not romantic fantasies. Our people need hope, Marcus said, speaking for the first time since the confrontation began. They need to believe that the future holds more than just survival. Without love, without choice, what are you really preserving? Our species, Kasara shot back, which matters more than your alien sentimentality. The argument was interrupted by alarms throughout the palace. Guard Captain Rowan burst into the throne room, her face pale with urgency. Your Majesty, she gasped. The Sisterhood of Purity has breached the outer defenses. They're demanding the alien be handed over for purification. Through the crystal walls, Marcus could see fires burning in the city below. The peaceful paradise he had discovered was transforming into a battleground, with him as the prize. How many? General Kasara demanded, immediately shifting into military mode. At least 300, Rowan reported. They've taken hostages and threatened to execute them if their demands aren't met. Queen Zephora stood from her throne age, and wariness falling away as she assumed her role as wartime leader. Evacuate the civilian sectors. Deploy the palace guard in defensive positions. Your Majesty, Marcus stepped forward. Let me go to them. If I surrender myself, no? The word came from Nira with surprising force. They will kill you, and everything you represent dies with you. She's right, the Queen agreed. The Sisterhood believes death is preferable to change. It will not be reasoned with. As battle plans were discussed around them, Marcus found himself drawing Nira aside. The weight of the situation pressed down on him like a physical force. I never wanted this, he said quietly. I never wanted to be the cause of civil war. You are not the cause, Nira replied fiercely. You are the catalyst. The tensions, the fear, the desperation, they were already here. Your arrival simply forced us to confront them. Through the palace windows, they could see armed women moving. Through the streets below, the Sisterhood wore white robes that marked them as religious zealots, while the palace defenders bore the crystal armor of the royal guard. Both sides carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Whatever happens, Marcus said, taking Nira's hands in his, I want you to know that these past days have meant everything to me. Finding you, connecting with you, it's shown me what I've been missing my entire life. She squeezed his hands tightly. This is not goodbye. We will find a way through this. Their moment of intimacy was interrupted by an explosion that shook the palace foundations. The Sisterhood had begun their assault in earnest. General Kasara appeared at their side, her weapon drawn and her expression grim. Your Majesty has ordered me to ensure the alien's safety. Come with me if you want to. live. As they moved through corridors filled with running guards and frantic servants, Marcus realized that his choice was no longer between helping rebuild their civilization or finding a way home. Now he had to choose between hiding while others died for him, or taking an active role in shaping the future of this world. The sound of crystal weapons firing echoed through the palace as battle was joined in earnest. Outside, the beautiful city of living crystal was being torn apart by women who would rather see their species die pure than live changed. Marcus looked at Nira, seeing his own resolve reflected in her eyes. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The war for Velthora's future had begun, and Marcus was no longer content to be a passive prize in someone else's conflict. The heart of battle, the hidden passages beneath the palace, were older than the current dynasty. Carved from living rock and illuminated by bioluminescent fungi that cast eerie shadows on the walls, General Kasara led them through the maze-like tunnels with practiced efficiency, her warriors' instincts keeping them ahead of the Sisterhood's advance. "Where are we going?" Marcus asked as they navigated a particularly narrow section. "The sacred grove," Kasara replied without looking back. "It's been consecrated ground for 1,000 years. Even the Sisterhood won't violate it with violence." Behind them, the sounds of battle grew fainter, but more ominous. The Sisterhood was systematically working through the palace, and their zealotry made them formidable opponents even for the trained palace guard. Nira moved close beside Marcus, her healer's training evident in how she conserved energy for the journey ahead. "The grove is where our ancestors first learned to shape the living crystal," she explained quietly. "It's considered the birthplace of our civilization." They emerged from the tunnels into a vast underground cavern that took Marcus's breath away. Ancient trees of crystalline structure reached toward a ceiling that opened to the sky far above. Streams of pure water wound between the crystal formations, their gentle song creating a natural symphony that seemed to resonate in his bones. "It's beautiful," Marcus whispered, awed despite their dangerous circumstances. "And strategically defensible," Kasara added pragmatically. "There's only one way in or out. If they find us here, we make our stand." As if summoned by her words, the sound of pursuit echoed from the tunnel behind them. The Sisterhood had discovered their escape route. "How long do we have?" Nira asked. Kasara checked her weapons charge. "Minutes at most." Marcus felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders, but this time it was different. This time, he wasn't being asked to be a symbol or a breeding partner or a political prize. This time, he was simply a man trying to protect the woman he loved. "There's something I need to tell you," he said to Nira, taking her hands as Kasara positioned herself to watch the tunnel entrance. "When I was a pilot, before the crash, I was running away. From commitment, from responsibility, from the possibility of real connection with another person." Marcus Nira began, but he pressed on. "Let me finish. Spent years afraid of exactly what we found together. Afraid of caring so much about someone that losing them would destroy me. But being here with you, facing all this, I realized I was never really living before." The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, but neither of them looked away from each other. "I love you," Marcus said, the words carrying all the weight of his newfound understanding.
What?
"Because you're the first woman I met on this world. Not because the situation demands it, but because you are brilliant and compassionate and strong enough to challenge everything you've been taught when your heart tells you it's right." Tears ran down Nira's cheeks, but her smile was radiant. "I love you too," she whispered. "And whatever happens next, that love will endure."
Out.
There. Kiss was interrupted by Kasara's sharp whistle. "They're here." White-robed figures poured from the tunnel entrance, their faces hidden behind ceremonial masks that made them look like vengeful spirits. Their leader removed her mask to reveal a woman whose beauty had been twisted by fanaticism into something terrible. "I am Vera, Sister Superior of the Purity Order," she announced, her voice carrying across the sacred grove. "Not to be confused with the weak-willed advisor who shares my name. Surrender the alien abomination, and the rest of you may leave unharmed. The only abomination here is your willingness to murder hope," Kasara replied, her weapon trained on the Sisterhood leader, Superior. Vera laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Hope. This creature represents the end of everything we are, everything we have been for millennia. Better to die as ourselves than live as mongrels. You're wrong, Nira said, stepping forward despite Marcus's attempt to hold her back. He represents the chance to become more than we ever imagined. To grow beyond the limitations that have trapped us. Spoken like a woman blinded by lust, Superior Vera sneered. You would betray your entire species for the touch of an alien male. The insult struck home, and Marcus felt rage building in his chest. But before he could respond, Nira's voice rang out clear and strong. I would choose love over fear, she declared. I would choose growth over stagnation. I would choose a future where our children know joy as well as duty. The two sides faced each other across the sacred grove, weapons drawn, but not yet fired. Marcus realized this moment would define not just their immediate survival, but the entire future of this world. You want to know what I represent? Marcus called out, his voice carrying to every corner of the cavern. I represent choice. The choice to love who you want to love. The choice to build families based on affection rather than obligation. The choice to see difference as strength rather than contamination. Some of the Sisterhood members shifted uncomfortably at his words, and Superior Vieira's expression grew more desperate. Lies and temptations, she declared. We know what males bring: war, competition, the destruction of the harmonious society we have built. You've built a society that's dying, Marcus replied. Not from war or competition, but from the absence of hope. From the lack of new ideas, new possibilities, new ways of seeing the world. Younger member of the Sisterhood lowered her weapon slightly. Sister Superior, she said hesitantly, perhaps we should listen. Silence, Vera commanded. Your weakness will not spread to others, but doubt had been planted. Marcus could see it in the way some of the sisters looked at each other. Uncertainty, replacing blind fanaticism. I'm not asking anyone to abandon their beliefs, Marcus continued. I'm asking you to consider that those beliefs might grow and evolve. That strength comes not from purity, but from the courage to embrace change. The standoff stretched taut as a bowstring, ready to snap into violence at the slightest provocation. In that crystalline grove where their civilization had been born, the women of Velthara would decide whether it would die in purity or transform through love. Marcus felt Nira's hand slip into his, their fingers intertwining as they faced whatever came next together. Around them, the ancient crystal trees seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if the planet itself was holding its breath for the choice that would determine its future. A new dawn, the tension in the sacred grove reached its breaking point when a new voice cut through the standoff. Queen Zephora emerged from a hidden passage, supported by Advisor Vera and flanked by the remaining palace guard. The monarch looked, exhausted but determined, her presence immediately shifting the dynamic. Sister Superior Vera, the queen said, her voice carrying centuries of authority. You stand on consecrated ground with weapons drawn against a guest of the crown. Explain. Yourself. The Sisterhood leader's fanaticism wavered slightly in the face of royal displeasure. Your Majesty has been deceived by this alien's influence. We seek only to preserve our people's purity. Purity is worthless if it leads to extinction, Queen Zephora replied. I have ruled this world for 7 decades, watching our population dwindle year by year. When hope finally arrives, you would destroy it out of fear. Marcus felt the moment balanced on a knife's edge. Everything that happened next would determine not just his fate, but the future of an entire civilization. Your Majesty, he said, stepping forward despite Nira's attempt to restrain him. I understand the fear that drives the Sisterhood. Change is terrifying, especially when survival is at stake. But I'm not here to destroy your culture or corrupt your people. I'm here to offer partnership. Superior Vera raised her weapon. Partnership with an abomination? Partnership with someone who loves one of your own? Marcus interrupted, his arm around Nira's waist. Someone who has seen the beauty and wisdom of your civilization and wants to help it thrive, not replace it. He looked around the grove, meeting the eyes of both Sisterhood members and palace guards. You're right to be cautious. My species has made countless mistakes, started wars over trivial differences, polluted worlds in the name of progress. But we've also learned to love across those differences, to build families that celebrate diversity rather than fear it. A young sisterhood member named Kira stepped forward, removing her ceremonial mask to reveal a face marked by doubt and curiosity. What would partnership look like? Superior Vera whirled on her subordinate. Kira, you forget yourself. I forget. Nothing, Kira replied with surprising strength. I remember the stories my grandmother told about love and choice and the joy of creating families from affection. Are those stories wrong? Those stories are from before the plague, Superior, Vera said desperately. Before we learned that males bring only destruction. One male brought destruction, Queen Zephora corrected. The plague was not of their making, but a cosmic accident that stole our future. This male offers to help us reclaim it. Marcus saw his opening and took it. I propose a new approach. It not breeding programs or genetic distribution, but the chance for genuine relationships to develop. Let your people get to know me as an individual. Let them choose, freely and without coercion, whether they want to be part of building a new future. And if they choose not to, another sisterhood member asked. Then they choose not to, Marcus said simply. Love cannot be forced, and children should be born from desire, not duty. Some women may never be interested, and that's perfectly valid. Others may find connection and choose to build families. The choice belongs to each individual. Nira squeezed his hand, pride radiating from her touch. He speaks truth, she said to the assembled women. In the days I have known him, he has never pressured or demanded. He has only offered respect and genuine affection. The sisterhood members were wavering, their certainty crumbling under the weight of possibility. Superior Vera, seeing her followers' resolve weakening, made a desperate choice. If you will not see reason, she snarled, raising her weapon toward Marcus, then I will remove the temptation myself. The energy bolt never reached its target. General Kasara moved with lightning speed, her own weapon intercepting the blast in a spectacular display of crackling energy. The force of the collision sent both women sprawling, but Kasara recovered first. Stand down, the general commanded, her weapon trained on the sisterhood leader. Your fanaticism ends here. Superior Vera looked around at her followers, seeing doubt and defection in their eyes. The younger members had lowered their weapons entirely, while the older ones seemed torn between loyalty and logic. Queen Zephora seized the moment. Let it be known throughout Velthora, she declared, her voice carrying the weight of royal decree, that Marcus Reed of Earth is hereby granted full citizenship and the right to choose his own path. Any woman who wishes to know him better may do so freely. Any who prefer to maintain distance will be respected equally. The pronouncement rippled through the grove like a stone dropped in still water. Marcus felt the weight of an entire world's expectations settling on his shoulders. But this time it felt different. This time, it felt like opportunity rather than obligation. Over the following months, the integration proceeded slowly but steadily. Marcus took up residence in the capital, spending his days learning about Veltheron culture in his evenings. With Nira, their relationship deepening into something profound and lasting. Some women approached him with curiosity, others with romantic interest, and still others chose to maintain respectful distance. All choices were honored. The first children born from these unions arrived with the changing of seasons, healthy hybrids who carried the best traits of both species. They were welcomed with joy rather than fear, celebrated as symbols of hope rather than contamination. Marcus stood on the palace balcony, watching the sunrise paint the crystal city in shades of gold and amber. Nira joined him, her pregnancy now showing in the gentle curve of her belly.
Out,
she asked, settling into his embrace. Staying here instead of finding a way home? Marcus considered the question seriously, as he always did when she asked. I miss some things about Earth, he admitted. But home isn't a place. It's the people you choose to build a life with. Below them, the city bustled with morning activity. Women went about their daily routines with a new energy, a sense of possibility that had been absent for over a century. Children played in the crystal gardens, their laughter mixing human and Velthorand influences into something entirely new and beautiful. Our daughter will grow up in a very different world than either of us knew, Nira observed, her hand resting on her stomach. A better world, Marcus agreed. One where love matters more than genetics, where choice matters more than obligation, where differences are celebrated rather than feared. As they watched their world wake up to another day of infinite possibility, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. He had crash-landed as a simple pilot running from responsibility and found himself as a husband, his father, and bridge between civilizations. The future stretched ahead of them, uncertain but bright with promise. And in the crystal city of Velthera, love had proven once again to be the most powerful force in the universe. Their kiss was interrupted by the sound of children's voices, calling up from the gardens below. The first generation of human Veltheran hybrids were beginning to speak. Their words a musical blend of both languages that seemed to capture the essence of this new world they were building together. Marcus and Nira looked at each other and smiled, knowing that their greatest adventure was just beginning.